Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're going to the Succah daf Lamed Hey. We are going to begin on Lamed Daled Amud Beis by the Mishnah. Esrog. Esrog hagozel b'hayavish pasul. So if you have an esrog which was either stolen or dry, that esrog is pasul, which is the same thing that we mentioned regarding the lul, hadas, and the rava in the previous Mishnayos. Shel sher v'shel nidachas pasul, same thing. That when it comes to these things in which need to be destroyed, burned, and therefore even if they are here, it's ki'u like it doesn't exist, and therefore it is pasul, because it has not the minimum shear. Shel arula pasul. Now we know when it comes to a tree, the first 3 years a person's not allowed to derive any benefit from its fruits. So therefore, if you would use such a esrog, that is pasul. Shel truma tameya pasul. If you use truma, which is typically consumed by a kohen, but because it's tameya, it has really no utility, and therefore it's pasul. And the Gemara is going to explain what's the problem. You're not eating it. You want to use it for the mitzvah. Shel truma tahara liyitol v'im natal kosher. Interestingly enough, that when it comes to truma tahara, if the truma is fine, you're not supposed to technically use it. We'll see why. But b'diavad, if you did it, it's fine. Question 3. Elu beis esroigim mavur dina b'masnisin shel yitel v'im natal kosher. So this is one of the two cases. When it comes to truma tahara, you shouldn't use it, but if you did, the din is that it is kosher. And all these, Rashi keeps saying, Gemara mafarish taima. Shel damai. So when it comes to the dinim of damai, which is questionable, the status of whether the trumas and meisers were taken off because you purchased it from an amaretz, beishami poisim beisil machshirin. As we'll see, the famous reason for Beis Hillel that is machshir demai. Shel meiser sheni b'Yerushalayim l'yitel v'im natal kosher. So here's the second answer to question 3. That when it comes to meiser sheni, which is in years 1, 2, 4, and 5, 10% of your produce is supposed to be brought to Yerushalayim. Of course, in the event that it's too heavy, you could redeem it onto money and bring those monies to Yerushalayim. So if you would end up using an esrog, which was Meiser Sheni, so you're not supposed to, but if you did, it's fine. Now Rashi says, why is it Yerushalayim? Shikshir lachilas Meiser Sheni, because technically you could eat it. Again, the question is, what's the problem? You're not going to be eating it anyway. Now, l'chadchila you're not supposed to do so. However, in natal kosher, Rashi says, shar yesh bo heter achila. This is actually alluding to what the Gemara is going to say, because you are allowed to eat it. But chutz Yerushalayim lo. Obviously, outside of Yerushalayim, you're not allowed to. D'lachem ksiv haroy lachem. So, this is the reason. The pasuk says, l'kachtem lachem. It has to be something that you have ability to enjoy, and therefore it has to have a heter achila, something that could be eaten. And therefore, since in Yerushalayim, of course, Meiser Sheni is allowed to be consumed, that's the whole purpose of it, so therefore, im natal kosher. Now we continue with a completely different part of this Mishnah, describing the different dinim of the esrog itself. Also chazazas al rubo. Let's say boils or bumps, Rashi says, Timin abu ba'ut da'akot, these small little bumps and boils are in the majority of the esrog, so that's going to be problematic. For that matter, this next din every little child knows. Natla pit masai. If the pitum breaks off, not that it doesn't grow with the pitum, if it doesn't grow with the pitum, it's fine. The problem is that if it had one, and then afterwards it came off. Niklaf, if it was peeled, nistak, nikav, v'chaser kol shehu pasul. So we're going to see in the Gemara all these different cases exactly what happens. So Rashi says nikav v'chaser kol shehu chad milsehi. This is actually one thing. The ilu nikav, if it has a hole, lo chaser, and it's not missing anything, and let's say there's a needle that was stuck in it and you took it out, it's kosher. So it has to be that it's nika v'chaser kol shehu. Okay. Also chazazas al miyuta. On the other hand, let's say only the minority of the esrog has these boils, Notel uksasai, the ukats, which is the stem on the bottom, not on the top, but the bottom of the esrog falls off. Nikav, let's say as a whole, kosher, as again we just explained. Esrog hakushi puzzle. If you have this esrog hakushi, Rashi says karishin. It's something which is like a dark green. People generally translate kush as an Ethiopian esrog. Yarok ikarti, in the event that it is so green that it's green like a leek, so we have a machlok. Because Rameir Mash, Rabbi Yehuda Paisel, and we saw before, a few blot before, it's because Rabbi Yehuda, not that necessarily he holds of hadar, but he holds it has to be Gemar Pera. And if it's still green, it's not ripe, and therefore that's not something that can be used. Shir Esr Kakatan, Rameir Omer Ke'ego, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ke'beitza. The minimum size is either that of a nut or an egg. V'gadol kadesh yachais shtayim biyado or biyado achas. It says on the side, the Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi Omer fil echad b'shtei yadav. Can you actually have such a big esrog? It's acceptable according to the shita that you can even hold it with two hands. Or according to the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, you have to be able to hold two esrogim in one hand. Okay, let's continue now with the Gemara on Lamed Hey Amud Aleph. So the Gemara says like this: Tan Rabbanan. When the pasuk says words pre-eitz hadar, that's referring to an eitz, shetam eitz u'piriya shava. Havi omer ze esor, which is the same drush we made by the Hadas, which is a little bit more problematic than this, because we know the esor is something which is edible, and it's referring to a situation where the tree, its wood tastes similar to the fruit. The aim of palpulin, so maybe it's referring to, let's say, peppers or black peppers, kedesanya. Hoyo ramero aimer mamash mishnemer. The pasuk says natatem kol eitz eni odeshu eitz michael. We know obviously that an eitz is something which produces food. Matamar eitz michael. So why does it say those words? It seems totally unnecessary, because it means not just eitz michael, but it means the eitz is also something that is Michael. Eitz shetam, eitz apir shava. However, this is palpulin. So not just an esrog, but also peppers have this characteristic that its wood or its branches and the fruit itself taste the same. First of all, it tells you that these peppers are chayav in arla. Why would you not think that? Says Rashi. Min yeriku. Don't think that it's considered like a vegetable. And they shoot eitz. Shuffle, because it's low to the ground, can mean Raisim Shena Gamom and Arts. Since it's not so high up, you would think it doesn't have the din of a tree. No. So again, Arl is dafka for trees, not for things that grow like tomatoes or potatoes. It has to be something that grows on a tree. So palpulin have the din, peppers have the din of like a tree. And Eretz Yisrael is not missing anything. We see that even palpulin are accessible there. Shenemar lo Succah. So the question the Gemara simply asks is, how do we know that the pre-eitz hadar is referring to the esrog, because it's pure eitz of his shava? Palpulin's the same thing. For instance, you can't possibly think it's peppers. There's no way it could be peppers, because how would it be? Take one, luminkra. They're so small, it's not recognizable that you're actually taking anything. Look, fine. Luminkra likachta. The taking is not recognizable. Ninkoy treyo tlasa. So maybe you should take two or three. So pri echad. If you look on the side, im bas l'hatzrich shnayim shleisha. The Torah says only one. When it comes to the esrog, it says pre, which sounds like it's one. You only take one, and therefore, because of that, there's no way it can possibly be palpulin, because you'd have to take multiple of them for it to be recognizable. Rabbi Omer al tirki hadar el hadir, just like that of a chicken coop or corral. When it comes to these chickens, they have all different types of species. Some are big, some are small, some are fine, some have blemishes. So too, when it comes to the esrog, it also, there's numerous kinds. Atu what? Sharp hairs, that's something in which is not specific to an esrog. All fruits, some are big, some are small, some are damaged, some are in better shape. So how does that explain it? Even while the small ones are there, the big ones are still kayim. They're still there. As we said before, Priyat Hadar could mean that it's dar, that it lives there from Mishal Shana. These fruits, the esrog stays on the tree for extended periods of time. Rabbi al tikri hadar ella hadar davar shadar bi'ilanoi Mishal Shana, which sounds similar. Something that stays on the tree from year to year. Benazei omer al tikri hadar ella idor. Idor is a language of water. Shekain b'lashen yavani, b'lashen yavani shekain l'mayim idor. That's what they call water. Ve'ezuhi shegadol al kol mayim. What grows by all water? How yerm is the esrog, and therefore this is the fruit, because when it says priyat hadar, it means idor, the fruit that grows by water, and that's the esrog. Okay. So the Mishnah said shel asher v'shel irni dachas pasol. As we said before, for some reason the Gemara here mentions it again. Doesn't mention it by the lul. It does mention it by the lul, but not by hadas harava. So my time akivan de lasreifakoi kasusim echsa shire. Again, because it's supposed to be destroyed, so the shear, the minimum shear of an egel as a beitza doesn't exist. So shel arla pasol. My time. Why can't you use a fruit which is within the first 3 years of its growth? After all, you're not eating it. And mitzvah slavli hanais. So what's the problem? So pligi bo Reb Chia bar Abin of Rabas is machlokas. Chadam lefi she'en bo heter achila, because you're not allowed to eat it. Chadam lefi she'en bo din mammon. It has no monetary value. So kosal chadayti man de boy heter achila lo boy din mammon. Man de boy din mammon lo boy heter achila. That these two answers are mutually exclusive. They don't hold of each other. So it's either because you can't eat it because it's arla, or because it doesn't have a din mammon, has no monetary value. Again, this stems from the notion, as we saw already previously, that the pasuk says lechem, that it has to have some purpose for you. So if that's the case, let's see the next part of the Mishnah. Tanan shel shruma tameya is also possible. Now bishul mamandim lefi she'en ba heter achila shaper. The whole issue of truma tameya, it makes sense because you can't eat it, because it's something which you cannot eat, because it's tameh. When it comes to truma tameya, it is mutar b'hana. You can actually throw it into your fire, and you can use it as firewood. So it does have a din mammon. And therefore, when it comes to truma tameya, the problem is because it doesn't have a heter achila. So ki plegi b'din mammon. Everyone holds that it's a requirement that it has to be a heter achila. So again, by truma tameya, it's definitely a problem. When it comes to arla, mar savar heter achila be'inan. One says that you have to be able to eat it. Din mammon will be'inan. However, monetary value is not necessary, and therefore, according to him, that's the din. Umar savar din mammon nami be'inan. So you need both things. So according to both opinions, my binayu, for arla it's not acceptable because it has no din mammon and it has no din achila. So what nafkamina does it make? Again, when it comes to truma tameya, they all hold there's a din achila, that it has to be able to be something eaten. And even though it has the din mammon, it doesn't make any difference because it has to have a din achila, have to be able to eat it. And truma tameya is not to be eaten. So if that's the case, why do they don't argue anyway in any practical nafkamina? So Yikabenayu Meiser Sheni Shirushalayim believed Rameir. When it comes to Meiser Yerushalayim, according to the opinion of Rameir, what's that? According to the one who says the issue is of heter achila, how are you shba heter achila? You're allowed to eat it, of course, because it's Meiser Sheni Yerushalayim. You're allowed to eat it. That's the whole purpose of it, and therefore you should be able to use it as your esrog on Sukkot. According to him, even though you could eat it, it's considered kikazachu b'shulchan gavoy kazachu. It's really Hashem's. Hashem's allowing you to eat that which is His, but you don't really have a din mammon. You're allowed to eat it, but you don't have a din mammon. So according to him, Lafi the Shita of Rameir, who holds that Meiser Sheni is mammon gavoa, that has no din mammon, and therefore you wouldn't be allowed to eat it. So therefore that would be the machlokas. Testayim, the Rav Asi dem Lafi Shein bo din mammon. We're going to support and prove that Rav Asi is the one who says that the issue is Lafi Shein bo din mammon. The Yomer Rav Asi, because we see elsewhere, he says Eser shel Meiser Sheni l'divrei Rameir ein adam yotzei b'yidei chavaso b'yamtiv. He says you're not allowed to be yotzei. You're not yotzei chavaso. So l'divrei Chachamim adam yotzei chavaso b'yamtiv, because he holds that Meiser Sheni is mammon hedyet. So Testayim, that's clearly a proof that he holds that Lafi Shitas Rameir you're not allowed to use it. Why? Because he holds the issue is din mammon, and since he has there's in this case there's ein mo din mammon because it belongs to Hashem. Testayim. Goof. Let's go back to something which we said before. Omer Avasi Esrog Shel Meiser Sheni L'Divrei Rameir. Again, according to Rameir, who holds that Meiser Sheni belongs to Hashem, it's mammon gavoa. Ein adam yotzei b'yidei chavaso b'yamtiv. L'Divrei Chachamim adam yotzei b'yidei chavaso b'yamtiv. So when it comes to Esrog, that's the machlokus. When it comes to Meiser Sheni, second machlokus about Meiser Sheni between these two opinions is regarding matzah. Matzah shel Meiser Sheni L'Divrei Rameir ein adam yotzei b'yidei chavaso b'Pesach. Apparently you have to own your own matzah. We'll see why. And then a third place where they would argue by Meiser Sheni is Isa shel Meiser Sheni. When it comes to the dough, you don't have to take off challah because the chiyuv of challah is only when it's your dough. But if it's Hashem's, because it's mammon gavoa, you don't have to. So Masker Papa. Bishlam Isa, I understand the third case that you mentioned regarding the din of the chiyuv of challah, that there would be a machlokas, ksiv reishi saru so seichem. It says it has to be your dough, the first of your doughs. And therefore it's dafka, the chiyuv is only if you own it. But if, let's say it's mammon gavoa, according to Rameir, you would be potter. That makes sense. Esrog, Nami, the first thing we mentioned, ksiv lachem mishalchem. So therefore again, according to Rameir, it's not yours, because it's Hashem's. It doesn't say it has to be your matzah. There's no chiyuv l'chayra of having to own your own matzah. Actually, there's a gzer shava that we're going to say that there actually is a chiyuv that the matzah that you have on Pesach should be yours. Which of course refers to Pesach. Like ksiv hasamas, we continue the Lamed Hamid Beis, and it says over there regarding challah. When you eat from the bread of the earth. So again, this is coming to tell you that a dafka has to be yours, even when it comes to the matzah, and it cannot be Meiser Sheni, l'liba the sheet of Rameir. So lema Messiah, let's say the following thing is a proof, maybe. Isa shel Meiser Sheni, when it comes to the doughs, patur min achala divrei Rameir. So frankly, Gemara, lema Messiah, it's the exact same thing we just said. What do you mean? Let's maybe, is it possible proof? What do you mean it's a proof? Is it like this? It's exactly the same. Since they argue there, b'hanami pligi, then they maybe also argue there as well. The fact that it says that it has to be yours, but it says it more than once, so therefore because of that maybe you would think there's more of a requirement that it needs to be yours and not anyone else's, and therefore maybe in that case they don't argue at all, and therefore maybe even according to the Chachamim they'll agree that Meiser Sheni perhaps is not allowed to, you'd be potter. Okay, that's one way of reading it. If you look in Ayin Toisus, explains this a little bit differently. Ayin Sham Shal Truma Tamei Psula. So we talked about Arla. So again, when it comes to Arla, everyone holds its puzzle because it doesn't have a heter achila. It's nothing to talk about. Does it have a din mammon? Okay, doesn't matter even if it does or doesn't. You can't eat it. Truma Tameya, again, we established you're not allowed to use it for esrog because Truma Tameya, again, does not have a heter achila. So therefore, it's not allowed. Everyone holds anything which doesn't have a heter achila is a chisaron b'lechem. However, truma that's only when it comes to that's truma tameya. And the Gemara again elaborates on this quickly. Shel truma tameya psula delays ba heter achila. However, shel truma tahara yitol. The question is why not? You're allowed to eat it. So pligi bo Rabam Ravasi. Chadaimer mimnei shemachshera. V'chadaimer mimnei shemafsida. The question is, first of all, it could be a machsher. Machsher has to do with regarding the dinim of Tumah. That it's possible. Let me see if there's a Rashi over here. Rashi says l'kabel Tumah. Darmin masnisin. It's brought down. It says makabelos isha miyad b'na, that a woman is allowed to accept it from the hands of a child, miyad bala, or her husband, this esrog, umachzeres l'mayim b'shabbos, and she can put it back into the water, or the lulav, shayisharin ha'aguda b'shabbos, kidei shul yevoshu, so that it doesn't dry up. When she touches the esrog with her wet hand, huchshel l'toma, it becomes huchshel l'kabel toma. As the pasuk says, v'chiyitain mayim yutan and yitain, water is totally on the machshava. So therefore, the problem is that we may not want you to touch this because it's going to get wet. And when it comes to truma, we don't want truma to become mekabel toma. The other pshat is achadar mimnei shemafseda, because you're going to be mas. It says Rashi kli pasa hachitzayin, that outer shell of the esrog nimeses will end up getting bruised and ruined b'meshamish hayadayim, because you're constantly touching it. Also, lahasid truma kedeprecious. You're not allowed to ruin truma. So therefore, if you keep touching your esrog, which you will be doing all sukkahs, you're actually going to be causing it to get ruined. Let's say that everything other than the outside is considered to be truma. So the outside is not truma. Therefore, there's still an issue of becoming mekabel tuma. However, according to the other opinion, that you're going to cause it a loss, there's no loss over here because you're touching something which is not truma, the outer shell, and therefore it's not a problem. However, so that's why l'chadchil we still don't want you to do truma tameya, truma tahara, because either you're going to be mafsid it or because you're going to be machsher. So again, truma tahara is allowed to be eaten, and it has monetary value. Therefore, technically, you are allowed to use it. Okay, Mishel Demai. So we have this famous Gemara which is mentioned in countless places. We have a machlokus whether or not you can use an esrog of demai. My time to be Hillel. Kivan di boy mafruhu l'chasei v'habi ani v'chazi le hashanami lechem karina le. Since if one wants, even if you're very rich, you can always be mafgir, make ownerless all of your possessions, and by doing so, you will become an ani. And a poor person is allowed to consume demai. And therefore, since technically you could become poor, so therefore you're allowed to use it even now that you're not poor. All you have to do is be mafgir everything that you own, and all of a sudden you'll be able to use it anyway. So therefore, we're going to allow you to use it now. According to Beis Shammai, a poor person is not allowed to eat demai. He doesn't make that dispensation for the poor. However, Beis Hillel is lenient and allows the poor, as well as those who are troops that are in need of food, that we make this leniency that demai is allowed to be eaten. Ditnan. Machil aniyim demai v'esachsani demai. V'em Rav Huna Tana Beis Shammai armim ein machil es aniyim v'esachsanim demai. Here it mentions also Beis Shammai also disagrees by the troops. So again, that is the whole basis of machlokas, whether a person can just be mafgir all their possessions. Shel meiser sheni b'Yerushalayim. So we said the second time in which l'chadchil don't do it, but b'di'ev it's okay, is by meiser sheni b'Yerushalayim. So mandi armer minei shemachshira hari machshira. It's the same problem. It does have kedusha. So therefore, if the woman is going to touch the esrog with her wet hands, it's going to be machsher. That liquid is going to make it now susceptible to become a kabel tuma. You're going to be losing its value because you're going to constantly be touching it and ruining it. So it's for the same reason that Truma Tahara, we don't want you to do so. So too when it comes to Meiser Shein Yerushalayim. V'im Nata Kashera. As we said, everyone holds it's not an issue. Certainly you're allowed to eat Meiser Shein in Yerushalayim. The din has the din mammon has value. That's like the sheet of Rameir, not like Rameir, rather like the sheet of the Rabbanan, that Meiser Sheni is mammon hedyet, it's not mammon gavoa. And therefore, since it belongs to you, it has a din mammon. Fine. Also chazazas. So we said, if there's these boils on the majority of the esrog, that's possible. If it's on the miyut, on the minority, then it's okay. Amar Chisda. So this is a similar lashon that we had a couple of blot ago. Davar zeh Rabbeinu Hagadol Amru Hamakim Yeheb Ezro. Rab said the following thing: Hashem should help him. Lo shel elba makam echad. Only is if it's on one place, which is mamish the same thing we talk about with all the berries on the hadas. Kosher. If the boils are on 2 and 3 different locations of the esrog, it's kosher. Very similar language. Amalei, something on Gareth would lay. Rava Adarava should be the opposite. If it's in 2 and 3 places, it looks spotted, it looks like a mum, it doesn't look good, and therefore it's definitely possible. So it's true. If it's in 2 and 3 different places, it's going to be possible by the rove, or if it's one place, rove, it's going to be possible. So what did he say? He was going to the latter part of the Mishnah, Seifet Mar. Lo Shanu that it's okay is elba makam echad. So he's saying that if it's on the majority, then there's nothing to talk about. It's definitely possible. It's on the miyat. If it's even if it's the minority, but if it's in numerous places, that will also be a problem. The question is exactly what is this referring to? There's different shitas of what is chutmoi. According to the simple reading, some people will look at an esrog with a pitim facing directly at them, so that part, which is the top half, is the most significant part of the esrog, and therefore people will examine this, that even when it's on the chutmoi, even if it's a mashahu, even the smallest chazis is going to passel it. If you look at Rashi, ba'oivi gavoa shebeshefa misham v'yori l'tzad roishai. So it's like by the curve, even the smallest amount. So Rashi says shenira sham le'inayim yosim misham kaimos, because that's something which is seen more and is more visible because it's the top part. Even the smallest amount will passel it. We'll just see this last Gemara. Notel pit masai. So if the pitum falls off, it's possible. If the ukatz falls off, we said it's not a problem. Tanya Rav Yitzchak bar Elazar notel buch nasai. It says that if the buch naso was taken off. So there's different interpretations exactly what this is referring to. Buch naso, as I wrote over here on my side, is also, according to some, referring to the ukatz itself. And the esrog, it's referring to the ukatz, and part of the esrog is attached to it. So the reisha is where not only the ukatz came off, but also part of the esrog. So there it's possible. And the seifa of the Mishnah is where only the ukatz had come off, but the rest of the esrog remained intact. And there the esrog would be kosher. So that's how some people say buch nasai is what it's referring to, the actual ukatz itself. Certainly if the pitum falls off, there's nothing to talk about. But if the ukatz falls out, and together with it, also some of the esrog, then it's possible. Let's look at this Rashi. We'll stop with this Rashi. Natal buch nasai. The masnisa havitani lahai natal pit masai. So it says that the pitum falls off. Buch nasal lafi shehu chad. That's actually one thing. We also come in buchna. Zelash and Meyer hazakim Rabbeinu Yaakov. Although Rabbeinu Yitzchak Chalevi haymafarish pit masai. When it comes to pitum v'uktsai, shnehem v'zanav. Both of them are like by the tail, the bottom. Uktsai shenitol ha'etz ma shechutz leguma shebe'esrog kash shebetmasai shetol she'ukatz mitach esrog v'chesroi v'fikach pasel, because some of it's missing beyond that. Behind it, Tan Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Elazar, not the Buchnasai, Masha Nichnas B'Soich Esrog, that which was inside the Esrog, that is what's referred to. V'Lashon Rabbeinu Yaakov nearly Shlomatzin B'Chol Makom Pitma Ukatz. I don't find that the Pitam is called Ukatz. So again, there's two different pshatim exactly how to read this. Is it Natal Buchnasai? It's actually just talking about the Pitam, or it's actually talking about the Ukatz itself, and the question is how much of it was taken off. Okay, Ayin Shah. So we'll stop here. Let's see maybe a couple questions. Question 4. Be'elu fanim posel chazazis be'esrov. So if it's robe, first of all, if it's on the majority, it's always a problem. If it's in 2 or 3 places, even if it's a miyat, or it's al chutzmo, if it's on the top part, afil mashahu, even the smallest amount will also be problematic. Okay, question TA 15. Be'elu fanim chazazis poislis. It's exactly the same question. So shall I repeat it again? TA 15. If it's on the robe, if it's on the miyat in 2 or 3 places, or it's on the very top. TB 16. Elubes ptamim. These are the 2 reasons. Nemru b'psul esrog shel arla. Why is an esrog of arla problematic? So we said either because there is no heter achila, or because it has no din mamon. Adkan.